Sunlight woke Fujinomiya Sujiro as he lay sprawled across unfamiliar grass, groggy and confused, muttering that the brightness bothered him before a voice startled him fully awake. Sitting alone under a wide-open sky, he scanned the empty field and murmured that nothing seemed to exist there, until a voice near his waist spoke again. Realizing the sound came from the katana strapped to his hip, Sujiro froze in shock, then broke into overwhelming joy that his treasured blade could actually talk to him. He recalled dying once already, remembering that a mysterious being had allowed him to bring only what he could hold, so he grabbed the two katanas nearby before being sent away. Turning to the second blade tucked at his side, he introduced it warmly as his beloved katana, though the sword itself replied flatly that the name sounded rather dull. The first sword then introduced itself properly as Hotarumaru, adding that simply being called Hotaru would also be perfectly fine for everyday conversation between them. Stunned by recognition, Sujiro blurted out that Hotarumaru matched the name of a legendary national treasure forged long ago and lost sometime during the chaos of the Pacific War. Hotaru teased him for swinging her around for 3 years without ever learning her real name, leaving Sujiro thrilled to have stumbled upon something so historically valuable. Determined to start over properly, Sujiro introduced himself fully and asked the quiet second sword for its name, guessing it simply hadn't developed the ability to speak yet. The second blade finally answered with the name Sakura, prompting Sujiro to note happily that only the three of them existed together now in this unfamiliar new world. Hotaru asked bluntly whether he intended to keep moving forward, and Sujiro answered without hesitation, insisting they figure out where to travel despite the unfamiliar land ahead. Studying the dense trees stretching before them, Sakura mentioned that if given a choice, she would rather avoid walking straight into the forest entirely. Sujiro agreed thoughtfully, explaining that he understood nothing about this world's ecosystem yet and preferred avoiding areas where dangerous creatures might be hiding unseen. Looking toward a distant hill, he decided that climbing higher ground might offer a wider view and reveal something useful about their surroundings. Setting off at a steady pace, Sujiro admitted his body felt strangely light, and even the air around him tasted unexpectedly fresh and different. Reaching the hill's edge, he noticed a faint flash of light far away, while Hotaru suggested that answers might only come if he actually went to investigate himself. Moving quickly across the terrain, Sujiro expressed relief that he had avoided the forest, arriving near his destination faster than he had originally expected to. Standing before a wooden signpost, he read directions toward Makaria, Zakiru's tower, and a bandit warning, surprised he could understand unfamiliar characters instantly. An hour later, with no town visible yet, Sakura warned that searching the forest for food could end badly, while Sujiro admitted continuing much further risked serious exhaustion. Choosing to stay on the safer path away from the trees, Sujiro pressed forward until Sakura suddenly warned him that she could hear someone screaming nearby. Sujiro sprinted forward across unfamiliar terrain, startled by how differently his body moved, immediately noticing that running felt oddly difficult under this planet's unfamiliar gravitational pull. Hotaru instructed him to lean his posture forward and push the ground backward with his feet, guiding him through proper running form step by step. Praising his quick progress, Hotaru admitted she was impressed that one lesson alone let him master running so naturally. While Sujiro blushed at the compliment, weighing his options carefully, Sujiro wondered whether pushing into the forest for supplies might accidentally provoke monsters and drag him into unwanted combat. Following the winding road instead, he noted that this single path seemed to be the only route leading directly out of the dangerous forest. Spotting a caravan ahead, the group decided to sneak closer and observe quietly, with Hotaru instructing Sujiro firmly to stay low and crouched. A captured girl demanded the men hand over a supposed exclusive contract, while their leader ordered someone to search her, suspicious such an object existed. Peering through a gap in the caravan, Sujiro identified the woman as an acolyte. Watching uneasily as the bandits mishandled her without hesitation, Hotaru warned that although the nearby bandit seemed weak, eliminating him silently without alerting the others would require careful precision and timing. Sujiro nodded, gripping his blade tightly as Hotaru asked directly whether he was truly prepared to carry out the necessary kill himself. Hotaru explained the plan clearly, telling him to eliminate the isolated guard first before closing the distance quickly to prevent anyone from reacting. Positioning himself precisely at Hotaru's instructed distance, Sujiro adjusted his blade's angle and stance, preparing to strike before anyone noticed his approach. Moving without hesitation, Sujiro executed the ambush cleanly, and Hotaru praised his composure, noting he clearly showed signs of prior real combat experience. The captured girl begged the bandits to stay quiet, right as Sujiro launched his sudden attack, catching the group completely off guard. Chaos erupted instantly as Sujiro struck decisively, cutting down one bandit's head while continuing forward without slowing his relentless offensive momentum. Promising to return for her later, Sujiro released the girl named Sakura from the group temporarily while more bandits scrambled toward the fight. Continuing his assault, Sujiro dispatched another bandit before a voice suddenly warned him that an enemy was closing in from behind. Reacting instantly, Sujiro spun around and delivered a decisive counterattack, cutting down the bandit who attempted to strike him from his blind side. With the final bandits eliminated, Sujiro stood breathing heavily beside the rescued acolyte, who stared at him in stunned, grateful silence. Turning toward the last two remaining bandits, Sujiro raised his blade calmly, declaring there were only 2 enemies left before finishing the fight. A flashback revealed Fujinomiya Sujiro's original death at 16, stabbed while killing 2 robbers without hesitation, a moment that quietly reshaped his entire worldview. As a child, he questioned why the murderer wasn't executed, learning instead that the man received life imprisonment, a judgment that felt unbearably lenient to him. Living afterward with constant estrangement, Sujiro developed a deviated sense of values, viewing genuinely heinous individuals as things rather than people deserving sympathy. Back in the present, the vice-chief bandit begged to retreat, calling their own leader greedy for provoking a swordsman during what had been a successful raid. Panicking further, the bandits debated fleeing outright, though one admitted running wouldn't help since their pursuer would inevitably catch them, regardless of speed. Their chief ordered the vice-chief to hold the intruders back at any cost, right as Sujiro calmly asked Hotaru if these men deserved mercy. Declaring this finally felt like a world where he could live authentically, Sujiro struck decisively, beginning Act 2 under the title, "What a Magnificent World." One bandit begged desperately to be spared, but Sujiro asked Hotaru what she thought before deciding the man's plea meant absolutely nothing to him. The rescued acolyte confronted him afterward, noting coldly that he hadn't hesitated even once while a married couple had begged for their lives earlier. Hotaru praised his performance warmly, calling his first real battle a success, while Sujiro thanked her sincerely for guiding him through every dangerous moment. Sakura questioned aloud why he kept talking to a sword, then asked whether he planned to collect the fallen bandits' abandoned weapons scattered nearby. Kneeling beside a corpse, Sujiro apologized playfully to Sakura for staining her blade, while a bandit nearby lay defeated after hitting the ground hard. Finished searching bodies, he reported gathering every weapon available, disappointed that none of the fallen bandits carried any actual money or valuables. The acolyte pressed him further, wondering aloud whether Sujiro genuinely understood the world's basic systems, since he clearly seemed uncertain what to do next. She explained that weapons functioned like identification cards, and that a criminal's confiscated blade could later be exchanged for an official monetary reward. Introducing herself properly as Sistina, she thanked him sincerely for the rescue, warning that magical beasts might soon be drawn toward the scent of blood. Standing before 2 deceased nobles, Sujiro reflected quietly that despite traveling together only briefly, their deaths still weighed heavily on his conscience. Sistina apologized for not arriving sooner, and Sujiro reassured her gently that placing blame on herself accomplished absolutely nothing for anyone involved. Now collecting jewelry from the bodies, Sistina explained they could now return these precious belongings safely to the grieving families left behind. As their carriage departed toward Mikurena town, Sujiro quietly admired Sistina's beauty, silently wondering just how rare returned belongings truly were here. As the caravan rolled onward, the maid turned quietly towards Sujiro, prompting him to look away and hum a light tune. When evening approached, Sujiro suggested they stop and set up camp for the night before darkness fully settled over the open road. The maid handed him a warm bowl of soup, mentioning that a servant back in Japan used to prepare something similar for her family. Overwhelmed by the taste, Sujiro began crying unexpectedly, insisting the meal felt like the most delicious food he had ever eaten in his life. Touched by his gratitude, the maid admitted she knew nothing about this world either. Listening as Sujiro asked if she could teach him everything about it. The young woman opened a shining display to show private identity, proposing shared greetings. As the display showed, the boy pressed it and gazed in doubt. He recognized he was able to read the strange writing because to sacred abilities he'd gained. Her precise record showed, showing her abilities containing single that taken him off surprise. Shocked and embarrassed, the young woman worried as he responded in finished surprise. She was shocked he was able to read hidden information while he calmly said sorry. Rising under the night glow, she requested to see his record panel and he decided. Following present cautiously, he followed her directions and fixed within. With a glow, his personal details showed, disclosing his class as a magic swords expert. Astonished by the outcome, he eagerly showed it while she looked on with curiosity. Inquisitive, he requested if the panel would disappear after contact and how to read names from it. She clarified her title and requested if he learned the class of an attendant. Sujiro couldn't quite understand her abilities, especially the additional private ones listed. She proposed to explain and started a precise account by the campfire. Adding it up, she showed her identity as a expert attendant, educated in advanced aid and bargaining. As a expert attendant, she gained a effective ability she had kept hidden till now. He recognized he had seen it agreement, a uncommon and precious skill among acolytes. Tied by agreement, an attendant must follow all orders or endure severe penalties, though their power rises sharply. She showed her shrine sponsors had obtained permission for her to form a agreement. Left with no agreement, she was helpless, incapable to protect or assistance, even in trouble. Following a recent event, locals observed Sistina remained unhurt while others were wounded. Sujiro offered doubt at seeing dying while being incapable to act, but she recalled him of the acolytes' limits. Sistina clarified the severe law acolytes must obey agreement terms or forfeit their abilities fully. He acknowledged her panel gave no combat features yet appreciated her elegant motion. Though perplexed by his class, she acknowledged his enigmatic class as a magic swords expert. Flustered, he unintentionally stated her personal ability prior to she explained it was wisdom script. She clarified the skill by concentrating on a term. She was able to at once gain thorough information about it. While his task read magic swords expert, it also included smithing-like features, which interested her. He questioned if he should attempt using easy comprehension while appreciating her appearance. Suddenly, precise details about the adjacent wagon filled his thoughts with ideal precision. Sistina requested if he had tested his weapon mastery skill, causing him to activate it with attention. After activating it, he found Hotarumaru's remarkable attributes and many high-level battle skills. Even his second blade, Sakura, amazed Sistina with its arcane features and sacred classification. Inquisitive, she asked about power intake while he moved focus to a stronger trait. With enthusiasm, the man got ready to activate the animate function and awaken Hotarumaru's actual form. Sujiro started the awakening incantation, and the blade asked for it to be unsheathed and set nearby. To his amazement, Hotarumaru transformed into a mortal form, making him speechless. As she quietly requested for her scabbard, Sistina swiftly proposed clothing. The scabbard floated and responded to her summons, emitting arcane power in the breeze. With elegance, the woman materialized a stunning robe and confronted Sujiro with a poised, commanding appearance. Hotarumaru embraced Sujiro fondly, feeling the warmth of human form for the first occasion. Sujiro seemed emotionally connected, touched by the connection between them. She offered her meaning to deepen their relationship through a mortal connection. The pair were astonished when Sistina suddenly responded to the situation with surprise. Sujiro is taken off surprise when Hotaru mentions a thorough form of connection between attacker and lady, making all embarrassed. Embarrassed by her banter, Sujiro tries to compose his body, while Hotaru offers to stand surprise for the evening. Afterward, the attendant tells Sujiro she has anything important to discuss with him the following day. Hotaru silently ponders, requiring occasion to calm her personal emotions. As Sujiro rests down, interest about tomorrow's discussion remains in his thoughts. While resting in her slumber, the attendant panics at the idea of parting ways following the evening ends. Sujiro sits up, shocked, as Hotaru softly silences him with a composed sign, casting a glance towards the sleeping young woman. Sujiro listens silently, his thoughts unsettled. The pair remain seated under the evening heavens, sharing several remarks about his unease. Hotaru draws him near, offering silent warmth, comprehension the emotional severity he carries. Ponders on Sujiro's earlier times, questioning how many lives he's brought, the pair here, and in his original realm. With a composed yet faraway gaze, he confesses he not once counted, he merely cut down what stood prior to him. She reveals the bitter truth single of his targets had been his personal biological father. Sujiro recalls the masked attacker who stabbed him, breaking in out of desperation and disregarding their connection. Resolute, he explains, the move wasn't vengeance, it was necessary to prevent additional harm. Hotaru watches in quiet. Hotaru softly suggests they slumber hip by hip. Noting there's no need to stand watch, she moves closer. Taking Sujiro off surprise, though he confesses his delay stems from nerves. Recalling their earlier times, she reminds him of how he wielded to cradle her every evening when she was a blade. Now in her mortal form, the woman embraces him the same way the man once did. Forced alongside, they use together a silent instant, sharing comfort and recollections once missing. Hotaru responds to Sujiro's closeness with a fresh, unexplored sensation. Her frame responding naturally. Sujiro hesitates, flooded, but the woman reassures him with composed confidence. Their emotions deepen as they use together, a tender, shared kiss, sealing their connection.
Under the silent evening heavens, their silhouettes merge, entirely accepting single different. Afterward, she praises the power he's increased, a determination many warriors sought but several achieved. As they relax, Hotaru grins gently, describing Sujiro an intriguing attacker. Adjacent, Sistina listens in surprise, blushing as she hears their closeness develop. Ponders silently, noting how Sujiro's loneliness shaped him and how this realm embraces what he is. The woman believes he needs someone who accepts him fully. Sistina, touched, whispers admiration. Rising up, Sistina recognizes her personal emotions might have grown stronger than she anticipated. As sunrise arrives, a silent idea recognizes that different individual has reached her decision. Sistina carries water, sharing early salutations with Sujiro, while watching him with fresh meaning. Facing him straight, she asks to form an agreement, her determination purge.
A urgent couple kneels prior to attendant Sistina, offering their entire fortune in exchange for an agreement with their son. Although being cautioned that repeated visits was able to cause trouble, they beg once additional, their devotion unwavering. Touched by their persistence, Sistina finally agrees to form the agreement. Sujiro responds with shock at the surprising decision. Perplexed and flooded, he challenges the decision as strange events develop near him. Sistina silently welcomed that their meeting was destined, a twist guided by sacred intent. Thinking on the earlier times, she noted how the Lord and Lady's visit changed all, even at great cost. She recounted how raiders attacked during their comeback, making her the sole survivor, instead than falling into hostile control. She was saved by Sujiro. Now, she offers her advice, carrying the essential to this world's secrets through her sacred information. Troubled by bitter recollections, Sistina confesses her power feels powerless to protect those she values for. Reassured by Sujiro's honesty, she grins and accepts his earnest favor for an agreement. With resolve, she prepares the ritual, summoning the formal magic required to seal their connection. 3 forms of agreements appear, every carrying distinct terms and tier-linked power. She explains their nature. Stronger agreements bid greater power, with expert servant being the most practical selection. Sujiro and Sistina inspect the obedience agreement, understanding its severity as single of complete authority. After deciding it, Sistina places her identity entirely under its conditions. A show of total compliance. While the agreement resembles bondage, Sujiro's casual selection astonishes those near him. Sistina isn't shocked, the woman had anticipated such an act from him all along. Suddenly, Sujiro issues an effective order to replace and revise the agreement by his personal intent. Sujiro readily edits the agreement, granting Sistina the right to refuse orders and erasing strict compliance clauses. He revises the law, allowing her to use her power freely when acting by her personal verdict. With a gentle smile, the man asks if the revision satisfies her. The woman's shocked agreements aren't meant to be altered, yet he rewrote it entirely. Comprehension his emotions. Sistina blushes and silently, because him from the heart. Sujiro points to the speech literacy ability, disclosing how he altered the agreement using his innate skill. He explains his power enables him to understand and modify all recorded and talked speech. This awareness prompted him to try revising agreements, and it surprisingly worked. Sistina bursts into chuckles, feeling that destiny raised her to this instant just for him. She recalls her lifelong training, recognizing it was all to single-day assist someone she truly believed in, places her palm on the agreement, officially stating Sujiro as her expert. With a peaceful smile, she promises to assist him loyally from that instant onward. Though delighted, Sujiro tries to show it, causing banter from Hotaru. He ponders on those alongside him, Hotaru, Sakura, and now Sistina, thankful for their appearance. Even amid chuckles, a silent unease remains, fearing such mutual fortune could invite trials ahead. Being blessed by the realm, he's urged to embrace his route with no delay. A warm handclasp seals a silent promise, although uncertainty yet lingering. Immediate compliance answers his joking order, causing chuckles and banter. A middle ground is suggested, forms of address changed linked on who's present, respect matched with warmth. Respect slips back in with a silent yes expert, making him embarrassed yet strangely content. Riding through silent plains, she asks what destiny rests ahead for them, the pair. No purge vision exists, solely a vague class given down by sacred selection. Surviving honestly and peacefully is sufficient, especially if showed with someone dear. Instead than disappointment, her composed response affirms commitment with no delay. With soft conviction, the woman reminds him starting from nothing means the man can become anything and select any goal from now on. A faraway town showed on the horizon, shifting their silent trip towards the following destination. The party came at a lively town, absorbing in the busy roads and unknown views. Single of them clarified the city's law entry required payment, unless accompanied by recorded acolytes and their expert. Though granted entry, they now owed the town a responsibility and come back. It wasn't a free pass with no obligations.
Yet, she had been resolute to enter, even if it meant absorbing on work. Funds was tight, making the exemption a necessary selection, although the penalties, a huge pile of creature bodies lay nearby them. Single of the women wished not gathering even additional. They intended to gain funds by trading hides and gathering rewards for eliminating raiders. The attendant nervously requested to deliver portion of their profits to her previous master's household. Her wordless request was sufficient. The party willingly backed her favor. They decided to retain solely what was required and deliver the relax as a sign of honor. Following the mission's completion, all of the raiders' possessions were given over to them as proper payment. They neared a store to trade the carriage, forming an agreement in mutual trust. An evaluator assessed the steed, understanding its value at once. The trader proposed 200,000 Maken, but they maintained on a better price. She stood her position, directing out the horse's worth, causing the seller to increase his bid. Bargaining became tense as the trader rejected her offers. She warned to leave away. Astonished by her determination, he yielded in and proposed the complete 350,000 Maken. She afterward showed she'd wielded a bargaining ability to drive him to his maximum. Though effective, she solely wielded it rarely, feeling it could be dishonest in other cases. With the price finished, they went to the lodging at last, prepared to relax. They came at the lodging, greeted by the keeper, offering chambers for 20 Mekar every. Deciding to protect funds, they asked for solely single room to use together. Following checking in, a filling food was requested to relieve their weariness. While eating meal, an inquisitive curiosity in regional drinks sparked some interest at the table. Chuckles followed as all admired the flavor. Unwinding alongside following a long trip, once relaxed, she raised up their following responsibility, investigating an enigmatic dungeon. Monsters wandered within, making the dungeon a hazardous yet important place to purge. Old records showed several such towers. Left uncontrolled, surging monsters had previously ruined many in the earlier times. With that information, the party decided that entering these towers was able to be valuable. Entertained but driven, she cheered with a beverage, keen to practice through real battle following meal. All admired her reliability, sharing a composed instant in the inn. Interest about the regional bathing area prompted to a shock. Some didn't even understand what it was. Thoughts drifted to quiet baths as exhaustion from travel took its toll. First reactions were favorable, though heated water would have reached it ideal. Plans for a real heated bath started developing. With occasion to available, they resolved to practice while expecting for the party to reassemble. A resolute expression, he readily welcomed her test, filled up with rivalrous power. Flashes flew as the pair rushed into the duel, every unwilling to back down. He lunged onward, barely missing as she dodged with relief. Rhythm grew swiftly, and his actions started to improve with every effort. Though impulses sometimes diverted him, his work amazed her as their spirited training carried on with force. A stern sound stopped their practice. The bathing area worker asked for an account for their forceful actions. She quietly finished the practice, smiling as adjacent spectators admired the display they'd just seen. As tension faded, he offered his palm in thanks for the training. With shared honor, they marked the instant with a hand clasp. Her guidance lingered, directing impulse was able to improve abilities, even if guided by uncertain attention. A third partner discovered them during hand clasp and asked about their uneasy silence in the corridor. He swiftly proposed going back to the lodging, trying to finish the instant quietly. While Single remained nearby to beverage, the others got ready to relax till she had Single last favor. Astonished by her remarks, he misread her meaning at first. Ease followed when she explained, disclosing she'd previously bought fresh gear for next day. Taken off surprise, he worried as she maintained it was her responsibility to clothe him. Yet uneasy from training, he struggled to understand the instant. She stumbled and fell straight on him, bringing their heads very near. A moment of quiet followed, pulses raced. Sujuru sat alongside Sistina, uncertain of how to respond to her vulnerable approach. Closing the affair, she kissed him softly, his breath taken, but he didn't resist. As the group carried on, the atmosphere deepened. Their breathing became heavier, lips meeting again and again under the dim light. Afterward, they sat in quiet. He spoke genuinely, and Sistina asked about his actual emotions. He embraced her firmly, affirming her place alongside him with no doubt. Under the warm covers, Sujuru touched softly, ensuring Sistina remained composed as he guided the instant. Afterward, the pair lay silently, wrapped in every other's weapon, comforted by the showed experience. He whispered gently, worried he troubled her, but she had remained awake, treasuring every second alongside him. A brief quiet elapsed as he reflected on her appearance, smiling quietly at the ceiling. Reassuring him, Sistina responded with confidence, her face proud and unshaken by what the group showed. Sujuru, feeling accomplished, admired the ability he just experienced, then proposed they meet Hotaru. At the bar, Hotaru greeted them with a banter remark, clearly aware of their night's events. Prior to parting, she calmly invited them to enjoy different bathing area, her tone joking and relaxed. Leaning in near, she declared her selection to remain as a weapon, hinting at her purpose. With a final term, she excused her identity and ascended the stairs, making the couple in quiet. Sistina stepped into the bathing area wrapped in a towel, nervously offering to wash Sujiru's back. Night glow glowed gently outside as the evening carried on inside the silent lodging. Within the steamy bathing area, emotions ran high. Sistina's boldness shocked Sujiro, taken off surprise by her force. Afterward, they collapsed alongside on the bed, the pair breathless from the night's events. Wary Sistina descended asleep peacefully, her face composed as Sujiro observed her in quiet. Sujiro lay awake, thinking on his distinct abilities, wondering if they had any use in intimate situations. As Sistina slept alongside him, the man pondered experimenting with a magic power substitute technique. Suddenly, his frame responded surprisingly, startling him with its force. Although the previous evening, heat surged through him, confusion setting in as the man tested to make sense of his condition. Seeing Sistina yet asleep, he paused, uncertain of what battle to bring following. Hotaru rushed into the room, scolding Sujiro as he worried alongside arresting Sistina. The woman stood firm, mocking his helplessness with a stern glance and stern tone. Following calming down, she instructed him to let Sistina slumber, postponing any training till next day. The following early, Sujiro found his vitality attributes had increased significantly. Inquisitive, the attendant pointed out Hotarumaru's abrupt increase in attributes. Meanwhile, Sujiro stated feeling surprisingly lighter following waking up that early. To their shock, Hotarumaru's tier had jumped to SFA, along with a list of effective fresh skills. Details showed her vigor intake rate possessed also reached an impressive level. Ultimately, they concluded the forceful event from the previous evening had triggered the abrupt power surge. Sujiro recognized the actual meaning nearby the magic vigor conversion, while Sistina had seen all, embarrassed. He was taken off surprise as the attendant shyly reached a bold favor. Moments afterward, a shift in the atmosphere showed Sakura's silent sorrow. He remembered how her high vigor intake came from being exposed to his blood during a critical instant. Reassured, Sujiro reassured Sakura to retain becoming till she was able to speak. Hotaru clarified how magic forms by forming internal power into phenomena. The woman carried on, noting that humans require structured systems to properly authority light and recovery spells. Although Hotaru nodded in comprehension, Sujiro remained entirely missing. With a brief sign, she demonstrated by increasing the light in the room. Impressing all inspired, Sujiro admired Hotaru and resolved to give it a tempt his body. Sujiro struggled to activate his magic, although having strong potential making all astonished. Hotaru cheered him up, reminding him of the uncommon power the man previously possessed. With a banter tone, she stated his power was overpowering and asked for nightly sharing from now on. Resolute, Sujiro announced their strategy to gather gear and test the dungeon the following day. Entirely got ready. The trio stood united, prepared for combat and the trip ahead. The party came at a huge building identified as the designated transfer point. Sistina stepped onward to favor access, explaining their intention to reach the dungeon. Within, Sujiro and his companions filled the formal facility, absorbing in the setup. A cheerful receptionist clarified the destination and ticket cost, causing surprising focus due to her attire. Following receiving a wooden tag, the team learned the comeback fare was able to be covered with magic stones. While carrying the transfer tag, Sujiro recognized adventurers was able to also trade arcane stones at this location. A loud entrance marked the appearance of seasoned returnees from the dungeon. Amazed by their appearance, Sujiro questioned if others also possessed the brief appraisal ability. Among the party remained Lila the gunslinger and Alexei, a cheerful melee fighter boasting their completion. Two others, Lucille and Garula, offered ease at surviving and voiced delay about repeating the ordeal. Garula neared readily, trying to persuade the girls to abandon Sujiro and join his party. The pair Hotaru and Sistina rejected him with no delay, showing purged disapproval. Annoyed by his attitude, they even weighed changing their base just to bypass destiny contact. Regrouping at the transfer circle, they verified their readiness and got ready to act onward. Alongside, they stood within the circle as the magic opened, awaiting the shift to begin. The party came at a scenic overlook, gazing at the wide lake town stretching prior to them. With resolve, Sujiro prompted his companions as they got ready to begin their trip. Their destination loomed ahead, a fortress island encircled by lively towns. Sujiro's party filled the towering dungeon, alert as the appearance of monsters drew closer. Sistine stepped onward, chosen to try her battle abilities against the lurking danger. With precise blows, she unleashed her power, taking her allies off surprise with her aggression. Although delay, she waited for the right instant as a beast rushed onward.
Striking rapidly, she fallen the creature, earning her companion's honor and praise. Sistine clarified her delay, confident the hostile would have dodged if she hit too early. She explained her class, better suited for defense and aid instead than blunt attacks. Thinking of her agreement with Sujuru reignited her power, briefly making her forfeit attention. Sujuru got ready for his turn as the party intended their advance towards the following danger. Alongside, the party touched stronger into the dungeon, prepared for what lay ahead. He observed the tower's interior was far larger than its outside looks proposed. Sistine pointed out the tower's strange layout and showed how it resembled a game-like structure. Every ground housed a boss, and fresh ones emerged once sufficient monsters were fallen. At the summit, the dungeon expert awaited his loss would carry the entire structure down. To progress, someone possessed to ascend, and every level raised the difficulty of the foes. Sujuru asked about the origin of towers, but a adjacent growl stopped the discussion. A dungeon wolf neared, and Sujuru readied his body while recalling his training. With the pair control gripping his blade, he stood firm, concentrating his position and breathing. The fight seemed heavier, his gear's severity was modified to simulate enhanced pull. Fangs bared, the beast lunged, signaling the beginning of Sujuru's first actual combat within the dungeon. Abrupt charge from the beast was diverted by the lady standing adjacent, barely avoiding harm. Losing track of his enemy's motion, the swordsman sprinted to recover his position. Taken off surprise, he was slammed to the position, laboring under the wolf's severity. His partner intervened swiftly, ordering Sistina to distract the creature with no finishing it off. Rising up, he acknowledged his delay, causing a composed bid to shift his mindset. Worry rose as they recognized the dungeon was emitting monsters not yet fallen within. Fear flickered across his face, trying to find the right remarks to explain the danger. A vision of merciless killing filled his thoughts, comparing monsters to criminals with no terms. He took a thorough breath, gripping his blade tighter and lowering his position in quiet. Reassured by his allies, he stepped onward again while Sistina got ready to aid from nearby. Frustration filled the creature as it confronted a composed opponent who rejected to flinch. With precise motion, the swordsman countered its charge, dismissing any sympathy for a killer. Fixed on his responsibility, he hit decisively to eliminate the danger. Sujiro confronted a vicious beast thorough inside the dungeon's first ground, his weapon clashing against its fangs. With ideal moment, he sprang the wolf-like creature into the breeze, readying for a decisive blow. Following the combat, two women observed his actions, interested by his distinct technique and composed appearance. He credited Hotaru's guidance for their completion, expressing genuine thanks for her combat impulses. Hotaru, with a smirk, pledged she'd accept his because in her personal way that evening, following the combat finished, the party found a gemstone left nearby by the fallen monsters. Single of the girls softly asked for Sujuru to display his wounded left arm for inspection. She wielded healing magic to restore it, smiling gently while offering him remarks of worry. Thankful for her compassion, Sujuru pledged to show his because and come back. Afterward, with mood high, the trio celebrated their completion and got ready for the evening ahead. Sistina stepped onward confidently as the team's vanguard prepared for the following encounter. With no delay, Sujuru followed up, launching a swift and coordinated attack alongside her. From nearby, Hotaru backed them by reading hostile actions and directing their reactions. Three enemies showed two wolves of different ranks and a stone puppet, all threatening. With their lines set, the trio rushed alongside, resolute to finish the combat decisively. Following clearing the area, the party rested as fresh tremors rang out from above. Hotaru and Sistina offered curiosity in progressing, but Sujuru paused, feeling anything ahead. A trader called Wilmark showed, informing them of a missing party ring requirement. The man raised a case filled with special rings, confirming his name and intentions. Explaining their arcane link, Wilmark demonstrated the ring's worth for cooperative adventuring. Wilmark clarified the ring's tracking skill, showing how they was able to locate allies inside the dungeon. The party was astonished by the high price, but acknowledged the purpose of the rings. As the group paused, Wilmark suddenly requested Sistina a question about her background. Following confirming her name, he proposed the rings as a gift, shocking all. The man showed his motive, seeking a destiny partnership with their party through goodwill. Sujuru and Sistina reviewed the merchant's bid, weighing the risks of a formal agreement. Wilmark observed quietly as Sistina got ready the document using her sacred authority. Sujuru noted the conditions cleverly favored them, with minimal drawbacks on the surface. However, Sistina showed a hidden clause solely she would face penalties if the pact failed. That evening, they rested alongside, unified and prepared to continue their trip next day. Prior to resting, Sujiro set his trust in Sakura, single of his cherished swords. Battles, Sakura's growth remained stagnant, puzzling the party. Hotaru proposed using a stored magic stone alongside Sujiru's special ability, supplemented training. Following directing his skill, Sakura's training worth at once rose, showing traces of progress. Driven, the team got ready to move back into the dungeon, aiming for higher floors. As they neared the dungeon, the party observed an unusually huge crowd group at the entrance. Wilmark showed through the crowd, visibly shaken, describing out to Sujiru with urgency. He reported that anything alarming had occurred on the first ground during the evening. Different adventurer verified the ground was strangely vacant, with no monsters appearing at all. Awareness hit they might have unknowingly eliminated every creature in the area. Hotaru speculated the dungeon could have wearied its creature reserves from excessive clearing. Wilmark, however, hinted that anything unusual possessed occurred afterward, raising concerns. Different team had filled the first ground but hadn't returned, alarming the surrounding adventurers. Survivors from stronger levels reported unusually strong monsters overpowering them during their retreat. Recognizing others were yet trapped, Sistina rallied the party to launch a rescue. Reports spread that many novices were trapped, close to the dungeon's center where trouble rose. Wilmark urged care, but Sistina firmly rejected the idea of expecting Resolute to move. Hotaru backed the strategy, confident they was able to bypass boss zones and rescue the stranded. Although the risks, Sujiru denied delay, recognizing their responsibility in causing the creature shift. He recalled them the pair how irreplaceable they were to him, strengthening their determination. Sistina declared the woman would enter the dungeon alone if stopped. Activating her contract's clause, she clarified her right to move independently in moments of private fairness and responsibility. Sujiru welcomed her determination and resolved they would face the trouble alongside as a team. The man smiled, expressing how important the woman was to him, unwilling to let her go alone. Thankful, Sistina embraced him, while Hotaru observed with a knowing smile. Sujiru reaffirmed his desire to protect those dear to him. Alongside, the trio decided to act onward with no overextending themselves. Arriving at the dungeon, they sensed a revision in atmosphere. Prepared and fixed, they advanced to begin the rescue task.
Sujiru sprang onward, slicing through monstrous monsters with swift, practiced motion. The battle area scattered with insect-like and wolf-went enemies. Within the fortress, he regrouped with his companions. Arms prepared, they exchanged a nod of coordination. The attendant rapidly joined the fight, striking down foes with no delay. Abrupt alert shattered the instant. Additional foes were quickly approaching. The party turned towards the incoming danger, bracing for the following moment. 3 savage monsters emerged. Stronger than prior to, their fangs and aura radiated trouble. Sujiru identified them swiftly. Hotaru sprinted ahead. The woman took 2 targets, while Sujiru got ready to engage the third. Hit rapidly, tearing through a beast during breeze. With no delay, she sprinted onward as additional foes rushed ahead. Sujiru stood alongside Sistina, readying his weapon. He took the lead while she braced her identity nearby him, tasked with guarding their aid. Seizing an instant of weakness, Sistina lunged towards the hostile. The lion's back was exposed, granting her a chance to blow. The beast responded faster than anticipated, leaping at Sujiru and forcing him to protect with the pair blades. Fangs closing in, he recognized the monster's power flooded him. A retreat became his solely option. Sistina sprang an effective blow, forcing the beast back with a clean blow to protect Sujiru from harm. He stood, recovering, as the lion staggered. Thankful for Sistina's assistance, he got ready to finish the creature alongside her. Prior to they was able to act, a moment of searing campfire rushed from the enemy's mouth. Sujiru shielded Sistina from the blast. She tested to heal him, but different danger rushed in. There was no occasion to cast recovery spells. Hotaru came, shouting orders. The woman took charge, urging Sistina to fight. Survival now depended on eliminating the beast first. Ramas to come back and rushed off, while Sujiru struggled on the position, weakened by the recent attack. A fresh partner neared him with worry, scolding softly while offering aid. He winced, yet in pain. Although exhaustion, she pulled him along, assuring there was a safe zone adjacent where they was able to recover. They touched swiftly through the corridor, aiming for a small opening in the dungeon where foes couldn't enter. Within, wounded survivors waited. Apologies were exchanged over cramped space and missing medicine, but ease filled their eyes. With fierce resolve, Sistina cried out and threw her identity into the fight once again, prepared to land different blow. Alongside, the woman and Hotaru attacked in sync, landing heavy blows on the hostile and knocking it off balance. Although the attack, the beast recovered. Hotaru's blow hadn't pierced thorough sufficient. A alert came just as it lunged again. Prior to it was able to harm anyone, Hotaru intercepted its charge. Her weapon pierced through, removing the monster's resistance in a single motion. Satisfied the danger was gone, they turned back, Going back to Sujiro was now their following priority. Sakura's power pulsed silently through the weapon. The connection between blade and expert sparked, offering aid for Sujiru's recovery. He gently raised his eyes, finding his body resting in Sestina's weapon, breathing steady once additional. Ease spread across her face as she requested if he was conscious. A silent nod verified it. Although the discomfort blame moved to her identity for not shielding him sooner, she wished letting him endure in her place. Sujiro reassured her with a smile, thankful that the woman remained safe and able to heal his wounds. Laboring with pain, Sujiro endured as Sestina cautiously peeled away his damaged clothes, mindful not to worsen his wounds. A healing potion ran down his back. Pain lingered, but the soothing effect started to relieve the sting. Sestina reflected on her sooner efforts, blaming her identity for the trouble he confronted. Guilt clouded her face. Thankful eyes turned to her. Sujiro pointed out that, because to her, many survivors had been discovered safely. Weeping shimmered faintly in her eyes. She managed a small smile and decided perhaps that was sufficient. For now, showed a shimmering gem dropped by the creature they had fallen. Sujiro examined it closely. The gem was uncommon B tier and campfire aligned. Its mutated nature reached it even additional precious. While the party responded, the brief-haired warrior fixated on the stone. Her forceful gaze raised challenges about her intentions. Encircled by adventurers in a dim cave, the wounded young attacker gradually regained consciousness. A red-haired warrior stood prior to him, his surprising savior. With no alert, she leaned onward, her tone stern with suspicion. Raising a brow, she asked about whether he viewed her as single of those bizarre female mutants. Brought aback, he proposed a plain truth: encountering someone like her in such a severe place was remarkable. The remark taken her off surprise, and an embarrassed laugh escaped as she brushed off her embarrassment. Even so, his honesty hit her, causing a silent, earnest, "Thank you." Embarrassed by the compliment, the red-haired warrior acknowledged no single had called her cute since childhood. When requested about the magic gem, she paused but nodded. Elsewhere, a monstrous creature experienced as Flame Fang bared its fangs. This beast, typically discovered on the 7th ground, matched the appraisal. Exactly. Although being uncommon apart from the 10th ground, the single he had confronted was even larger and fiercer than usual. It flooded with effective campfire-linked attacks. She clarified these mutant monsters were abnormally strong and dropped precious magic gems, value a fortune. With the healing finished, Sujiro offered thanks as the team got ready for what lay ahead. As additional wounded explorers were raised in, Sujiro instructed the healer to tend to them till they was able to stand on their personal. In response to his interest, the red-haired warrior presented her identity as Frey, a beast swordswoman usually active on the 4th ground, now on an escort task. Sujiro asked for that Frey guide the others to safety, assuring her the area possessed been mostly cleared of threats. He then showed his complete title Fujinomiya Sujiro and pledged to repay the favor, but was softly told not to worry. Recognizing the risk of envy, Sestina recalled him to remain silent about the magic gem. He quietly decided, comforted in her embrace. Single of the adventurers eyed Frey suspiciously, noting the woman had been hired by an unseen figure and vowing to remain cautious. Frustration flared as the man yelled at Frey, demanding the woman respond and pay focus to him. Sujiro swiftly intervened, seizing the situation and halting the conflict prior to it escalated further. He advised the tense adventurer to depart at once, asserting authority quietly and confidently. Frey, shocked by the confrontation, recovered swiftly while Sujiro checked her well-being, ensuring she was unhurt amidst the tension. Supported her identity, insisting she was able to stand with no assistance. Though weariness lingered from sooner events, Sujiro and his companions observed as some adventurers whispered about the unusual dynamic, likening her handling to that of a guest for hire. A composed tone replaced tension as Sujiro reflected that their main objective possessed previously been achieved. Sestina recalled him of their successes, noting the many persons they had rescued and proposing it was occasion to depart. Hotaru reported sightings of several individuals close to the ground boss, causing the party to adjust their route and move towards them. Desperation filled her sound as she maintained Sujiro and Sestina were the most important persons in her existence, pleading for their safety. Sujiru's response remained firm, denying any reckless escape for now. Although her strong emotions, recognizing her delay stemmed from fear for him, he recognized allowing her to move on impulse would be a mistake. Motivation moved from private desire to defending others, and she readied her identity as an attendant, got ready to move on their behalf. A composed reminder to stop behaving like a stranger underscored the connection between them, disclosing the comprehension of her actual intentions. Sestina urged battle, asking all to imagine themselves in her place and step onward with no delay. She pleaded passionately for assistance, expressing her desire to protect those in trouble and requesting a palm in the work. Sujiro responded decisively, agreeing to join and aid the rescue with no delay. Palm reached out in encouragement, signaling readiness to move alongside as a team. Eyes widened with resolve. She welcomed the sign, bracing her identity for the task ahead with renewed determination. A silent agreement elapsed among them. Control joined in resolve as they got ready to act onward alongside. The route ahead showed purge, with the previous creature having dominated the area, making fewer threats in their way. Hope flickered as the party recognized it could be possible to locate different explorers with no engaging in combat. Suddenly, a stern sense of trouble reached them. A creature lay ahead, forcing immediate battle. Fear erupted in the afar as someone screamed, signaling an adjacent victim and spurring the party into motion. The party raced through the corridor, hearing cries for assistance from those trapped ahead. A massive creature blocked their route, forcing them to move swiftly to reach the targets. They attacked in unison, resolute to loss the creature and protect as many lives as possible. From the shadows of the 12th ground, a massive bear creature surged onward, its claws tearing through the breeze as stone fragments scattered across the dungeon ground. Responding with no delay, the female swordsman moved her footing, barely avoiding the blow while her weapon traced a stern arc towards the creature's frame. Absorbing advantage of the instant, the male swordsman rushed in, muscles tensed as he advanced with his weapon, prepared to reinforce the attack. With no alert, the monster's form faded away, making nearby solely troubled dust and cracks spreading across the position, forcing the pair fighters to silence. Recognizing the hostile had concealed itself, the male swordsman repositioned swiftly. Abrupt impact hit the male swordsman as the hidden bear emerged, its attack landing prior to he was able to entirely recover his balance. From nearby, the female swordsman touched in near, analyzing the situation as the enemy's skill showed a method of erasing its appearance. Sweeping her weapon across the space, she widened her awareness, forcing the battle area itself to become portion of the defense. Meanwhile, tension gave on the male swordsman's face as he supported his hold, recognizing the trouble while pushing nearby delay. Moments afterward, the surrounding space warped violently, and he turned towards the distortion, preparing to counter the incoming blow from the right. A violent shockwave tore through the ground as the male swordsman leapt back, barely avoiding the collapsing position caused by the monster's motion. Across the battle area, the female swordsman drew her weapon and held her position, cautiously tracking distortions spreading through the breeze near her. With moment aligned, the pair fighters lunged onward alongside, their attacks converging as the hidden hostile showed its position for a brief immediate. Midair, the bear creature emerged roaring, forcing the male swordsman to blow defensively while rhythm carried them earlier times single different. As the clash finished, the female swordsman slid nearby the creature, planting her legs and preparing the decisive counter that would turn the fight. The combat finished with the bear creature collapsing across the cracked ground, its massive frame finally stilled as the fighters regrouped near it. Inspecting his weapon, the male swordsman noted the lack of damage, recognizing the hostile had failed to depart even a shallow mark. While lowering his weapon, he reflected on its nature, comprehension that it was able to no further remain an unnamed tool. Adjacent, the female swordsman moved her focus outward, considering the unseen penalties of the fight and those who could have been taken in it. Their thoughts were stopped when different survivor neared, disclosing that two persons had barely escaped the monster's attack. Following the combat, the saved pair presented themselves, their injuries purged but their ease evident as the fighters stood adjacent. Unease settled in when their names were repeated, causing a brief silence as all looked across the damaged chamber. From afar, a grim sight came into sight, showing different party collected near a defeated frame on the stone ground. Stepping closer showed the truth, as the female swordsman lowered her gaze and the male fighter stiffened at the sight. The wounded survivor verified the outcome, making it purged that although their efforts, they had came too late to protect all. Grief settled heavily as the survivors clarified how single attacker had offered his body, buying occasion while the creature hunted them through the ground. A vivid memory followed, disclosing a terrifying shadow nearby him, confirming that the danger they confronted was no ordinary creature. Surprise lingered in his face as fear and guilt surfaced, the severity of seeing anything unseen pressing thorough into his thoughts. Clutching the wounded young woman, he supported his body and decided protection over retreat, resolute not to let the same tragedy repeat. Adjacent, the swordswoman observed in quiet, understanding determination developing as sorrow hardened into a reason to retain moving onward. Standing against the stone wall, the swordswoman reflected on power, comprehension that protection required additional than intention, and asked for equal determination from the pair sides. Across from her, the male swordsman weighed her remarks cautiously, weighing responsibility against his current limits. A brief shift in her face showed confidence, proposing that growth would come through balance instead than authority. In the wider chamber, survivors rested on the ground while the two fighters observed from afar, aware that cooperation was able to stabilize the party.
As comprehension settled between them, the male swordsman recognized that shared trust and showed awareness would shape their route onward. With the trouble elapsed, the swordswoman clarified the strange communication method, making the male swordsman silently processing the revision. Thanks filled the chamber as the saved party collected themselves, exhaustion visible but mood gradually recovering. Loss became purge when their possessions were counted, disclosing that all precious had been abandoned during the escape. Although the setback, the party decided to act onward alongside, footsteps echoing as they departed the battered ground. Trailing nearby, the male swordsman reflected on the defeated warrior, recognizing the dungeon consumed power with no pity and left bit room for delay. As they touched stronger into the dungeon, the survivors learned that any frame left nearby would be absorbed, turning dying itself into fuel for the structure. That awareness cast a heavy quiet over the party, making every step feel like motion through anything alert and watching. Tension gave on the male swordsman's face as the meaning settled, forcing him to confront how near the dungeon always was. Ahead, the swordswoman slowed her pace, quietly signaling care while ensuring nothing followed from nearby. From a faraway corridor, faint motion neared, causing the two fighters to separate from the party and prepare for whatever emerged following. And strange warriors stepped from the corridor, halting their advance and signaling a fresh encounter that warned the group's balance. Following confirming the others escaped unhurt, the female warrior turns back within the stone ruins. Their paths reconnect, and the situation forces them to rely on shared aid instead than private power. Facing the trouble ahead, the swordsman steadies his determination. Having come this far alongside, retreat no further holds meaning, and commitment replaces delay. Moving as a single party, they advance through the small corridor. Readied arms, silent injuries, and heavy quiet signal different unavoidable clash. While walking onward, comprehension grows between the swordsman and the warrior. Discovering every other's battle habits becomes necessary to survive the battles ahead. Tension briefly arrives when an uneasy misunderstanding occurs between the warrior and Sujuru. Focus shifts to the weapon in Sujuru's control. He examines it cautiously, aware that its nature feels strange, yet he masks uncertainty through composed observation. As the weapon is showed, its long history becomes apparent. Unlike common weapon, the blade carries severity from generations. While walking alongside, Sujiro shares fragments of his earlier times. Loss, survival, and violence shape his present. Seeing his burden, the warrior softens. Shared comprehension forms between them, creating trust that strengthens their connection as they continue onward. The party pauses to assess their roles prior to moving on. Hotaru is positioned at the ahead, chosen for matched power and defense. Confusion rises when Sujuru's natural blade handling becomes noticeable. His actions suggest experience that contradicts his stated lack of battle ability. Gradually, the reason becomes purged through observation. Training under Hotaru has shaped his impulses, allowing skill to surface with no conscious work. Uneasy tension briefly returns as misunderstandings resurface. The instant highlights Sujuru's social inexperience instead than ill-meaning. Practice resumes as Sujuru demonstrates steady dual-blade actions. Careful positioning and steady form show potential that continues to shock the party. While resting in the ruins, the warrior ponders on her earlier times. Loss and hardship shaped her early existence, making emotional scars she rarely reveals to others. Although that history, she continues onward with no delay. Endurance defines her appearance, showing how many trials she has previously lived. A silent exchange with Sujiro carries subtle comprehension. Recognition replaces afar as he begins to understand the severity she carries. Thanks answers when earlier time's aid is acknowledged. Shared honor forms, strengthening trust between them as companions instead than strangers. The instant ends when trouble approaches once additional. Foes gather adjacent, forcing the party to refocus as tension settles heavily over the route ahead. As trouble closes in, Sujiro and his partner decide to divide their line. Every prepares mentally, comprehension that separation rises risk but offers better authority. Moments afterward, Sujiro steps onward with the pair swords unsheathed. His position sharpens at once, signaling readiness as threats begin surrounding them from several directions. Positions shift swiftly, awareness heightened as warnings spread through the corridor with no delay. Abrupt screech echoes through the stone hall. Shadows rush closer, disclosing quickly moving figures charging through the small passage. The hostile finally emerges in complete sight. Dungeon ants and ant soldiers advance aggressively, forcing the party into an unavoidable clash. Fear flashes across the warrior's face as the enemy's name becomes Purge. An ant attacker appearing here signals trouble far apart from ordinary monsters. Facing the creature, move on. Care replaces haste. Focus shifts to its behavior, noting how its appearance draws different dungeon ants closer. A brief strategy forms under pressure. Single member is tasked with luring the lesser threats away, creating space for a decisive blow. Priority becomes purge as arms are raised. Allowing the chief to move freely would invite disaster, making elimination the solely viable selection. Determination hardens as Sujuru prepares to act. Killing meaning surfaces briefly, marking a shift from defense to ruthless battle. Motion erupts as ant forces surge onward, mandibles clattering against stone. Single fighter arrives left to draw focus, while different charges straight ahead with blades prepared. Steel flashes through small space as the vanguard intercepts shorter creatures. Precise footwork keeps several bodies at bay, preventing encirclement. Rhythm builds during a sweeping blow that cleaves through hardened shells. Impact sends fragments skidding across the ground, thinning the swarm. Watching from the hip, composed verdict replaces shock. Power and technique combined cleanly, disclosing battle experience forged through hardship. Finishing blow lands with brutal accuracy, crushing a dungeon ant during rush. As the frame collapses, authority of the battle area finally shifts. With no delay, Sujuru launches his body upward, leg driving onward as insects swarm below. Precise blow lands midair, weapon piercing cleanly through hardened flesh. Single enemy falls at once, confirming the plan's effectiveness. Rhythm carries him through the opening as a obey-up attack crashes down. Limbs scatter and line arrives, making the last creatures exposed, landing hard against the stone ground. Balance is swiftly recovered. Dust and fragments rain down as the hostile reels from the abrupt loss. From nearby, the warrior charges in to finish the stragglers. Coordinated motion restores authority, sealing the advantage increased moments sooner. Debris settles across the stone ground as quiet returns. Exhaustion shows in unsteady breaths, yet ease answers with the last danger finally gone. Following regrouping, supplies are given over with silent efficiency. Trust deepens through plain gestures instead than talked praise. Recognition comes gently as the severity of sooner effort sinks in. Single fighter recognizes who held trouble back while others fixed onward. Thanks mixes with delay. Emotions surface briefly, prior to being restrained, shaped by habit and earlier time's loss. Determination sharpens once additional as positions are brought again. With trouble yet ahead, roles are resolved and different decisive combat awaits. Following the clash, Sujiro collapses onto the stone ground. Power remains, yet anything within feels hollow, replaced by confusion and unease. Awareness sharpens as awareness settles in. Emotions once familiar fail to surface, making solely detached comprehension nearby his steady gaze. Kneeling in the vacant corridor, he ponders on what was brought long ago. Loss is acknowledged with no weeping, carried as a silent severity. Quiet stretches ahead as the passage bends out of sight. Motion continues, although uncertainty, guided by impulse instead than feeling even. With no feeling, purpose remains, pushing him onward towards the danger expecting ahead. She runs through corridors while faraway trouble stirs, unaware different existence falters, binding their paths towards an approaching confrontation ahead.
Sujiro stood detached and resolute, eyes filled with vengeance for the single who stole Sakura. The young woman escaped in fear, guilt piercing her with every step. Her breath quickened, repeating that she had no selection. Recollections of her brother troubled her. She remembered the evening she was forced into submission to protect him, swallowing shame for his sake. Then came Sujiro offering assistance, not knowing betrayal would obey. His compassion reached her hesitate. Yet, she ran, blade and gem in palm, urgent to escape the pain of the pair the earlier times and the present. Fear clouded her face as fear surged through her frame. Her escape seemed uncertain. Looking back, she saw him closing in quickly. No matter how far she ran, he was gaining position. Shocked, she froze. He was yet alert, eyes locked on her with unwavering attention. Her control strengthened near the stolen items. Terror consumed her as she ran harder. The man was relentless. She didn't grasp how he had lived. Recollections of his sooner compassion surfaced. He had once shown comfort, but now, that same attacker hunted her with no delay. She neared silently, watching his back. His position seemed clear, vulnerable. Yet, she paused. The quiet nearby him weighed on her. Doubt filled her heart as the woman raised her weapon. Fear took over. The woman turned and ran. Thoughts repeating the woman possessed betrayed him. Her conscience screamed louder than her footsteps. Weeping followed fear. Desperation cracked her sound as she asked about her destiny, cornered by the pair regret and fear. Recollections of better days resurfaced her brother, their struggle, and a man's compassion that once yielded them meal. Survival had cost all. While resting awake, she remembered the instant all moved her brother's illness, and Bart revision marked the beginning of her downfall. Weeping streamed down her face as she ran. The severity of her efforts crushed her, fearing dying over a urgent theft. Slowing down, she gripped the stolen item. No footsteps nearby her. Her determination returned. This was for Al. She couldn't afford to stop. Suddenly, she confronted an unseen danger. The position shook beneath her legs. A monstrous beast towered over her. She descended, terrified. As a sound rang out, her reasons were learned. But trouble didn't caution. With no delay, Sujiro stepped in, shielding her. He hit the beast during charge, commanding her to come back the stolen items and flee. Terror gripped her again, but his sound shattered through. He confronted the creature alone while urging her to run. At his legs, the pouch and scabbard fell Sakura and the gem she had brought. A gentle smile crossed his face as the man reclaimed his weapon. In a soft sound, he welcomed Sakura back home. The beast roared. Sujiro stood tall, prepared to finish the fight and purge the ground. Sujiro stood face to face with a monstrous dragon mantis, a ground boss exuding lethal, meaning blades prepared. His escape seemed uncertain. Sooner, reports of Sakura's abduction had reached him. Prior to his allies' return, he rushed ahead to investigate. Roars rang out as a beast surged onward. Trapped in hostile territory, the man searched desperately for a way out. Adrenaline surged. He lunged onward, evading the incoming blow while preparing his personal. The position shook. A blunt struck flung him back. Disoriented, he recognized too late the real trouble was yet looming above. Pinned under the creature's claw, Sujiro clenched his weapon firmly, resolute not to surrender with no resistance. Harnessing elemental force, he hit the position with explosive power, sending a shockwave up the beast's leg. From above, he plunged down with the pair control gripping his blade, but the creature's hide proved too tough. Recognizing the enemy's sluggish motion, he changed tactics and circled to its exposed hip with renewed attention. With precise aim, he slashed thorough into its thigh. Though the wound fell, he recognized Sakura's brief range wouldn't finish the fight. Unsurprising tail blow sprang Sujiro into the breeze, slamming him hard against the position. He barely recovered. As he observed the chamber, a fresh idea started developing in his thoughts, an escape route hidden in plain sight. The man observed his position was now closer to the stairway than the ground boss itself. Calculating swiftly, he recognized a blunt dash could give him a real chance. The enemy's size reached turning difficult. With no hesitating, he turned and rushed. No additional occasion for second thoughts, solely the intent to survive pushed him onward. Breathing heavily, Sujiro moved the opening to the stairs. The boss hadn't touched anything, seemed off. Just as he neared safety, the beast showed prior to him, striking off his escape with impossible pace. The surprise flooded his frame. His legs shook as the impact crushed his power, driving him to the ground. Blood dripping, he gripped the position, incapable to rise. His blade arm weakened as his vision blurred. Recollections resurfaced, a tale of a cursed dragon tied to its relic, always teleporting to surprise it. The pattern now reached ideal sense. Collapsed and bleeding, Sujiro faulted his carelessness. Sakura's sound rang out faintly, stirring guilt and regret. Suddenly, she showed, accepting him firmly and urging him to fight. Her appearance seemed real. Reassured, he struggled to grasp her appearance. Yet her resolve reignited his personal. He recognized the blade might have absorbed his blood, triggering a revision. Possibilities formed in his thoughts. With Sakura's illusion magic masking him, he wielded the instant to recover. The dragon paused, no further attacking, granting him precious seconds to move. Wounds moved gradually as Sujiro supported his breath. The dragon carried on scanning the area, unaware of his location. With the silence, he inspected Sakura's current attributes. Her skills had grown, now containing invisibility and shared comprehension. It became purged. The dragon couldn't sense him through the walls, recalling earlier times' battles. The man smiled faintly at the memory of a bear fight. Sakura cautioned her illusion wasn't foolproof. Single wrong act, and the hostile would spot him at once. The instant she stopped speaking, the beast locked eyes with him again. He rose, knowing the occasion for evasion had finished. Blood loss reached Sujiro sluggish. He tested evading with accuracy, expecting for an opening in the dragon's pattern. His vision blurred. The severity of exhaustion forced in, and the following blow nearly finished him. A massive tail blow sent him flying, though wounded. His heavy blade absorbed portion of the impact. Landing hard, the man noticed the blade's tip fall away. His unnamed bastard blade had broken at last. Yet gripping Sakura firmly, he stood up again. No occasion for regrets. He had single weapon left and a fight to finish. Hotaru came just in occasion, shielding Sujiro. His pain faded, astonished by her abrupt appearance. With swift accuracy, she touched to face the dragon, while Sistina tended to Sujiro. Hotaru took charge of the combat. Hotaru stood wounded but composed, urging Sujiro to prioritize his recovery. Though visibly in pain, she dismissed worry, insisting Sistina would explain all. Reluctantly, Sujiro stepped back, entrusting the situation to Hotaru as she touched onward, weapon in palm. Facing a beast, Hotaru showed her resilience.
Although her mortal form, she retained the durability of a blade. Blood now flowed through her, yet so did pain, watching her fight. Sujiro faulted his weakness for her injuries, frustration evident on his face. Meanwhile, Sistina embraced Sujiro in ease, while Different Spirit wished her inability to protect him. Sistina neared concern for Sujiro's injuries. He composed his body, resolute not to give in to feeling. She clarified they had encountered allies from the upper floors. With Hotaru's detection skill, they navigated swiftly. A merchant's party ring permitted immediate travel, because to that they reached Sujiro in occasion. Thanks filled Sujiro as he sat with Sistina. He owed his existence to their efforts, especially Hotaru, Sakura, and Intent. From the battle area, Hotaru verified his recovery. Reassured, she sprang into battle with unwavering determination against the last danger. Hotaru confronted the monstrous ground boss Move On. Causing it closer, she got ready for a decisive blow. The beast attacked wildly. Hotaru dodged with accuracy, gauging the enemy's arm actions while avoiding a blunt struck. Seeing an opening, she leapt into the breeze, aiming for its vulnerable move. Although the tough hide she forced on. Elsewhere, Sujiro offered frustration at being sidelined, while Sistina described the enemy's overpowering power. Though her abilities let her protect her identity, Sistina acknowledged her personal attacks barely harmed the creature and come back. Analyzed their current power. Solely Hotaru and Sakura possessed arms strong sufficient to damage the hostile. As Hotaru fought with the creature, Sistina acknowledged light magic was uncommon and strange, ruling it out as a viable tactic. The party weighed using a campfire gem to boost Sakura, but the risk of losing consciousness during combat reached it a last resort. Sujiro urged Sistina to escape, but the woman clung to him with resolve, unwilling to abandon him. Sistina healed him again, exposing his hidden doubt. The woman recognized his inner conflict, granting him power to face the truth. Encouragement from Sistina raised his mood. Though embarrassed, he discovered motivation in her sincere aid. Confidence returned. Alongside, they stood prepared, got ready to drive onward. Although their wounds, combat plans formed swiftly. Supporting Hotaru became the priority, while the others got ready to distract the boss. Pain started to subside. Her healing was effective, allowing him to rejoin the fight with no delay. Coordination was smooth. Sakura opened her ability, and Hotaru, previously poised, welcomed his appearance. Resolve surged this occasion. They would fight as single, with no carrying back. Hotaru admired him, understanding his growth. He welcomed the strategy draw the enemy's attention while she touched in for the kill. Sistina managed to pin the dragon mantis with accuracy. That yielded Hotaru space to wait for the right instant. Swift coordination followed. Using Sakura's stealth skill, he sprang a series of brief blows, constantly shifting positions. The man aimed low, slicing at its left leg to destabilize its position and create an opening. The creature roared in pain. Their attacks possessed begun to bring effect. The final phase had truly begun. Rhythm grew as the strategy unfolded perfectly. Accuracy blows started to wear the beast down. An opening emerged. Encouragement rang out to retain pressing the attack. The group couldn't let up now. Hotaru sprang from above, prepared to deliver a decisive blow. Eyes locked, moment synchronized. But it was a feint. The hostile warped violently, knocking Hotaru into the breeze prior to anyone was able to respond. Surprise froze Sujiro. A sinking feeling spread, he couldn't stop it. Yet anything stronger awakened. That blow had crossed a line. Sujiro, resolute to assistance, asked for the campfire gem, although the risk he was done expecting. Empowered, Sakura sprang a blazing attack. Her pace flooded even the dragon mantis's gaze. Using newfound agility, she kept it off balance. While evading near battle, she pressured the hostile with unrelenting magic. Sakura stealthily advanced through the battle area, her hide ability masking her appearance. Resolute, she vowed to eliminate every danger obstructing her expert. With no delay, she sprang a fiery barrage campfire release arrow rain, piercing the monstrous beast and forcing it into a vulnerable state. Noticing the opening, her allies rallied. Single called out to Sujiro, signaling the ideal instant for a decisive blow. Though victorious, the aftermath showed Sakura gravely wounded, having recklessly shielded Sujiro from harm. Rising alone in pain, she faulted her weakness for the chaos, masking her sorrow nearby a faint, trembling smile. Sujiro acknowledged her power, reminding her that she had solely been in this realm for a single week but was previously showing remarkable growth. While she asked about whether anyone was able to progress that quickly, he assured her of her natural talent, expressing confidence in her potential. With resolve in her eyes, Sakura unleashed Campfire Release Lance, driving her attack straight at the monstrous foe during charge. Her relentless attack seemed effective, causing others to recognize her compatibility in combat though. Sujiro worried she was being reckless. As the creature sparked ominously, her comrade cautioned Sujiro to remain back,
feeling a hazardous counterattack about to develop. The massive beast curled into a tight line, its frame shielded by jagged, overlapping scales. Sujiro stood firm, feeling the pressure intensify near them. Perplexed, he asked about if the creature was merely bracing itself. Its posture didn't seem offensive, just calculated. From above, the team recognized Sakura's sooner attack stripped its offensive armor. In response, it now prioritized defense, hardening its outer shell. With no delay, the pair girls sprang synchronized blows, aiming to shatter the creature's reinforced barrier prior to it was able to recover further. Confident from their rhythm, Sujiro voiced belief in their victory. Hopeful the tide possessed truly turned. The monster's armored frame shook as cracks started to form along its hardened scales, signaling a potential shift in its behavior. Alarmed by the swelling of its chest, Sujiro recognized anything was wrong. He shouted an urgent alert, urging Sakura and Sistina to retreat at once. Moments afterward, the beast unleashed a devastating roar that erupted in a massive shockwave, launching the girls violently through the breeze. The pair Sakura and Sistina struck the position hard, their bodies battered by the explosion, making their allies stunned and worried. Sujiro staggered onward, coughing blood as Sakura rushed to cradle the unconscious Hotaru, fear and anguish overtaking the battle area. Enraged by the brutal attack on his companions, Sujiro confronted the beast with clenched fists, his fury igniting into battle. Positioning his body between the creature and his wounded allies, he summoned his partner weapon with unwavering determination. Hotarumaru responded to his summons, recognizing his order with loyal resolve as power started to surge between them. With blade in palm, Sujiro took a firm position, his aura steady although his torn and bloodied frame prepared for the final blow. Recognizing Hotarumaru was able to solely be wielded once additional, he fixed all into that single instant this combat would finish with single decisive blow. Barely clinging to consciousness, Sistina set her trust in Sujiro, entrusting him with the final blow. Sakura, fallen and breathless, said sorry as she crawled onward, devastated by her failure. Although their injuries, Sujiro stood firm. He rushed at the creature with all he had, eyes locked on the enemy. With a fierce cry, he raised Hotarumaru down with complete force, striking the beast's skull in an urgent final attack. Sujiro stood battered, blood dripping from his arm, his vision blurring. The ground boss roared, its blows becoming additional violent. Yet, he rejected to fall. The beast had shed its scales and grown faster. Sujiro, though wounded, dodged every blow with sharpened impulses and unwavering determination. Recognizing the monster's rhythm was faltering, he readied his body. This would be the deciding instant. Leaping onward, he drove his weapon into the beast's core with complete power, directing all into that final attack. Quiet followed. The blade stood upright. Yet, Sujiro collapsed, uncertain if victory was his. Sujiro awoke in a silent room, perplexed and weak. His eyes met a familiar face, Sistina, rushing to his hip. She tested to remain composed, but worry overtook her. He greeted her quietly, but she swiftly recalled him of the situation. 2 days had elapsed since the combat. Sistina had remained by his hip, watching over him the entire occasion. With a tired smile, Sujiro embraced her softly, thankful to see her safe and near. Weeping welled in Sistina's eyes. The woman held on firmly, relieved that he had finally returned to her. Yet resting, requested about Hotaru and Sakura. Sistina clarified they were wounded but recovering. The man gazed out the panel, recognizing the harshness of the fight that left them all wounded. Although his worry for Sistina, she maintained he continued to relax. Yet he remained fixed on the values they upheld through the combat. Offering a middle ground, the man invited her to join him, asking to hear about what happened afterward while they lay alongside. Blushing slightly, Sistina decided, moving closer as peace finally settled in following the long struggle. Sistina, weary, whispered an apology prior to dozing off alongside Sujiro. He turned towards the swords, feeling anything. Hotaru materialized, reassuring him that the woman and Sakura possessed entirely recovered from their injuries. She recounted how he collapsed at once following slaying the ground boss, incapable to bring different step. With great work, Sistina restored her identity sufficient to act. Carrying the pair swords and Sujiro, she struggled to reach safety. Although her resolve, the staircase remained far away, her power nearly gone. The fight was over, but survival yet asked for all. A wounded young woman showed, burdened with guilt. Although her earlier time's efforts, she reached out and requested to assistance. Sistina acknowledged her appearance during the combat. The young woman pleaded again, this occasion genuinely. With aid from the pair Sujiro and Sistina, they walked onward alongside, tied by fresh trust. She pledged to atone and retain their hidden. At the lodging, Sistina delivered reports of their victory. A reward awaited them from the Lord of Raytok. In the silence that followed, Sujuru learned Sistina had healed him non-stop, sacrificing her power till she was able to give no additional. Sujuru requested Sakura for assistance regarding Frey, though uncertain why, she learned his meaning and decided with no delay. Although just recovering, Sakura sprang into battle with enthusiasm, assuring him she'd not once refuse his favor. As she vanished into the afar, Sujuru observed her in admiration, noting her unmatched pace. Hotaru offered worry, uncertain if such work was required. Yet, she recognized his determination and smiled knowingly. Sakura soared through the evening, resolute to uncover Frey's motive for stealing her. The task had begun once again. Uncovered disturbing truths Frey possessed failed, but hinted someone else had manipulated events from the shadows. Noticed Frey's cruelty firsthand. Her fury boiled over, questioning if she should bring fairness into her personal control. Afterward, back at the lodging, Hotaru acted on impulse and kissed Sujiro, surprising them the pair with the abrupt closeness. Her determination deepened. She reassured Sujiro to thank Sakura properly once she returned, confident in her personal emotions. That evening, Sakura rushed through the panel with a bold report task finished, and the truth exposed. Sakura stood perplexed for an instant, taken off surprise by the question. When requested about the others, she paused, trying to find the right remarks. Meanwhile, Hotaru and Sistina had brought occasion to talk alone, eating a casual instant now that Sakura was able to hold a mortal form. Surging with feeling, Sakura embraced Sujiro, expressing her delight. She kissed him, cherishing the focus she'd longed for. Closeness deepened. The woman whispered her wish to be addressed, just like during their fiercest combat when the group were truly connected. Chuckles and kisses filled the room. Wrapped in every other's weapon, the connection between them solely became stronger. Weeping welled in Sakura's eyes as she said sorry genuinely for a earlier time's mistake absorbing his existence. Though occasion had elapsed, guilt yet lingered in her heart. He was able to see it clearly instead of blame. She was met with comfort. Reassurance replaced regret as he offered his love and thanks for their show trip. Their closeness sparked joking banter. Following days of relax, he leaned in, prepared to give her all the focus she craved. Wrapped in closeness, Sakura raised up entirely. She requested Sujiro to embrace her with the same passion he yielded others. Eerily came. Their evening had been forceful but meaningful. Sakura teased him about his overpowering power, her tone joking. As they lay alongside, a soft sound requested to act earlier times all that had happened. He decided with no delay. Elsewhere, Frey learned of Bart dying, perplexed and shocked. She started questioning what would come following. Suspicion filled her thoughts. The blow had been too precise. Solely a handful of persons could have pulled it off. Hotaru and Sakura stood confidently, their distinct power allowing them to transform into arms when required. With no alert, a fresh blade showed in ahead of Sujiro and Sistina, surprising them the pair. Recognizing what had just happened, Sujiro announced the appearance of a fresh partner. Different blade had joined their team. Early, Sujiro lay in bed, reviewing his private record display, alongside an inquisitive partner. The show showed a fresh ability, magic blade summoning, one added to his list of skills, stirring his curiosity. Interested, he weighed using it. The idea of summoning a fresh arcane blade thrilled the pair, him and the young woman at his hip. Concentrating his power, he initiated the spell. A shining circle formed in ahead of him, and a weapon emerged from the light. Shortly following, 3 women stood prior to him, single presenting the newly summoned blade with solemn control. Sujiro inspected the newly summoned weapon, noting its age and condition while seeking insight from Hotaru. Recollections of a selection between swords from his grandfather resurfaced, now tied to the enigmatic discovery of this particular weapon. Activating appraisal, he showed the sword's name Niku Sukazane, with abilities linked to darkness and a special skill called Hubris. Surprise overtook him as he recognized the blade was a state relic meant for the Tashog shrine, not some hidden stash. Staring at the weapon, he asked about how a relic from the Kamakura period tied to Tokugawa Ieyasu finished up in their possession. Although Sujiru's outburst, the girls laughed, noting that the man was actually in a cheerful atmosphere beneath his exaggerated frustration. Afterward, Hotaru neared him with a serious face and quietly proposed going back the former blade they had just summoned. Taken off surprise, Sujiro responded with light banter, comparing her to the weapon and proposing their ages weren't too far apart. Hotaru rested against him, explaining that while the blade looked noble, it lacked combat experience unlike her identity. From their showcases, the swords reflected on earlier times' tensions, recalling a rivalry that started during their occasion stored alongside. Hotaru clung firmly to Sujiro, asserting her higher tier and reminding him that she was his first selection back on Earth. While resting against her, the man followed to her banter as she teased the younger blade's spirit for being insolent.
With a smug grin, the woman seemed to bask in the situation, provoking emotional reactions while holding her composure. Meanwhile, the swords resumed their usual quarreling, mocking every different with insults the group had exchanged back in the storehouse. Sujuru reflected quietly as the rivalry intensified, now turning into a combat of pride between womanly elegance and brute personality. Nervously addressed the spirit inside the blade, who swiftly said sorry for her sooner lack of formal greeting. Smiling fondly, he suggested granting her a fresh title, which she eagerly welcomed while Hotaru observed in amusement. Thinking on the sword's historic roots, he decided the title Awai inspired by Tokugawa Ieyasu's household crest and legacy. Awai was delighted by the thoughtful title, expressing delight and admiration for the sign. With sincere thanks, she pledged her loyalty, and Sujuru, now properly armed, welcomed her appearance as a fresh partner in combat. Pledged to prove her value, resolute to outshine the different blade spirit she mockingly referred to as a monkey. As Sujuru tested to shift attention, he acknowledged he had no clue about the situation, causing chuckles and joking banter from Hotaru. He then remembered a recent close-to-dying experience, disclosing that the team had barely lived a fierce combat just days sooner. Aoi paused, astonished to learn that even the rival spirit had confronted such trouble during that confrontation. Sujuru verified solemnly the pair Hotaru and Sakura had nearly missing their lives in the brutal fight. Requested if hazardous encounters like that were typical here. Through the panel, a composed sound verified it. Yes, they were. Facing her, he acknowledged there would be challenges ahead and requested for her power, insisting on loyalty with no delay. Speechless for an instant, Aoi observed him prepared to depart. He turned towards Hotaru and Susanoo, prepared to meet the territory lord. Left nearby briefly, Hotaru asked about Aoi, uncertain if the same boy who loved swords possessed now truly changed. Aoi responded gently, seeing power in him that hadn't been there prior to. Her heart filled with pride at his growth. Hotaru teased softly, proposing that Asui secretly wished she had observed him mature over occasion. Embarrassed, Asui reluctantly acknowledged it. Recollections of the silent, vacant armory reached her realize how fortunate she was to be chosen while others remained marked away. Presented with earnest devotion, she heard him summons her my lord, vowing to use her entirely in the battles to come. His thanks was sincere. Joking banter followed, with Hotaru getting scolded for banter while others smiled at the spirited exchange. Eyes widened as the group came at an elegant mansion, the domain of the territory's lord, awaited just apart from its grand entrance. Within the mansion, lively staff touched through wide halls. Their appearance yielded the place an energetic, almost festive atmosphere. Attendants stopped the party politely, asking for their patience prior to disclosing anything surprising was happening nearby the scenes. The woman clarified that the Becker family's son had perished in this very town, reportedly from an unfortunate accident. Whispers of a note left nearby cast doubt on the tale. Some seemed the truth painted him in a darker light. As they waited, Susanoo's eyes lingered sharply. He sensed she might have figured anything out about him previously. In a silent, elegant room, all collected for a serious discussion as Sakura addressed the pair, the expert, and her companions. While eating sweets, the cheerful atmosphere moved when Susanoo asked about him about the dying of Bart Becker, implying stronger information. Recollections surfaced of Frey's confession following they left the dungeon. Her troubles were additional than just private. She had been blackmailed into service due to her ill brother. Pain was evident in her remarks, showed with the pair Hotaru and Sakura. Wanting to shoulder responsibility, Susanoo declared her involvement, asking to bear the severity of the situation equally. Reassuring remarks and a gentle sign calmed the atmosphere as he recalled all they recognized bit about what truly happened. Suppurative praise followed. Sakura was praised for her honesty and efforts, while the team gave appreciation for single another's roles. An uncommon instant of comfort elapsed between Susanoo and Hotaru, sharing silent because in an instant of shared honor, watching them interact so naturally raised a smile. He leaned back, content, thinking this quiet existence wasn't so bad. Suddenly, their host showed with booming power. Lord Isaac Diarca filled the room with bold flair and a deafening sound.